Hey everyone, this is Crystal, and today I am creating some stash kits specifically for my Project Life albums. So I'm going to be creating, I'm thinking maybe 3 or 4 small kits to work from to fill in the gaps in my Project Life album for 2020. So the first thing that I did was look back through my photos from the weeks I know I haven't completed and got a feel for the subjects and the time frame and the season and just what I was doing in those weeks so that I would have kind of an idea of the kind of cards and products that I would be able to use in that album. So I've done that already. I have it fresh in my mind. I'm going to start with the 3x4 cards. So this is how I store my 3x4 cards, in these little blue boxes. These are from Starbucks mugs. I have a video about how I sorted and organized these cards, and I will link that here. But this is how I'm going to start. I'm just going to start kind of going through some of them. I probably won't go through all of them. There's quite a bit here, but I'm just going to pull out ones that I really want to use or that really work for the stories that I have to tell. So that is step 1.
So if you've seen my organization video for these cards, then you know I have them separated by manufacturer. And like I said, you can watch that video. I will link it down below as well in case you'd like to go back to it later. But I'm starting with the Citrus Twist Kit cards because I know that I'm going to love these cards. They're my favorite kit club. I'm still super sad that they're not doing kits anymore, although I'm very excited to see what they have to offer in the future. But I know that I'm going to love a lot of these cards, and these are going to give me a really good kind of foundation to start with. So I'm building each of these kits off of the cards that I find here in this pile. So like I said before, I did go through my photos and figure out what stories I have to tell for the time periods I need to fill in, which is basically from the end of August, beginning of September, through the end of November is what I'm looking at. So by the time I work through all these kits, I'll be documenting through the end of November. I'm not looking at December at all. I know that I have other products to pull from for December. I'd really just want to fill in that gap, and I highly recommend looking at the weeks you want to fill in before creating stash kits. I have in the past created just kind of some random kits that weren't at all curated to the time periods I needed to document, and I had a really hard time using them just because I felt like they didn't really work with what I needed to document, and I ended up just pulling from my stash instead. So having these kits that I know are well curated to the stories that I need to tell in the upcoming weeks of my Project Life album, I know I will be able to reach for them. I know that they'll work. I know that I'm actually looking forward to using these kits to tell those stories because I know they're gonna coordinate so well with my photos. So highly recommend doing that. It does take just a little bit of extra time to get that done, to do that extra step, but I think it's well worth it. So I think it's an important step in this process. So knowing what stories I have to tell, I'm creating piles of things that, of cards that kind of relate to those stories, obviously. So up in the upper left-hand corner, I have a pile of things that kind of have to do with travel or telling travel stories, because I know that there was a week that I need to document where I went on a little road trip with my mom, a very safe, very COVID conscious road trip with my mom, and I definitely want to use some of those kind of travel or road trip products to tell that story. Right above the pile I'm working through is a pile of things that have to do with reading and coffee, because I, in looking through my photos, found a week where basically that's all I have photos of is books and coffee. So I wanted to make sure I used all of those awesome books and coffee cards that I know I have in my stash for that week. I have one kind of off to the right there that is just a lot of really encouraging things. So also in this time period, there was a week that was a really hard week that some things happened that made it just a really difficult time for me, and I wanted to use things that would be encouraging and like that card that says "You've got this," things that would kind of go along with that theme. I didn't want to focus on the negative from that week. Obviously, I'll be telling that story, and the story is what it is, but I wanted to, in the process of telling that story, have a way to remind myself that it's going to be okay, that everything's going to work out. So I chose to pull out some cards that kind of go along with that theme as well. And I did add, you can see I have like some very fall themed cards in with that pile. I'm going to end up pulling those aside and using those in a separate kit. I'm going to end up with 6 kits, not 3 or 4, but 6. And that's fine. I think that will be enough to work through a lot of the weeks that I have to finish up, and if I have extra, that's great too. I can use them in the future, or I can just put them back in my stash and start fresh come January. So I've grabbed my little pile of Ellie's Studio cards now. I knew that I had some book-themed ones, so that's mainly what I was looking for here. But I don't end up using those. I end up pulling out some other ones, but that's fine too. So I don't have a lot of Ellie's Studio. I've never subscribed to Ellie's Studio, but I have purchased some like one-off kits before in the past. So that's what I have to go through there. This is a pile of Feed Your Craft. These are, I think, mostly the kind of guest design kits from Feed Your Craft. Those are things I actually stamped using one of the Feed Your Craft stamps, and I just threw them into this category in my card stash there. But I do end up pulling out a few of these. So I think I have all 6 of my piles out now. So yes, I have the travel one, the kind of book one, the encouraging one. Right above that is one that has a lot to do with gratitude. So things that say thankful and grateful and gratitude, but mostly I pulled it for the color scheme. So there was that purple card that says thankful that has kind of a yellow border at the bottom of the words. And I wanted to really have a kit that kind of was color based on those kind of lilac purpley tones and that mustardy yellow. So that's really what that kit is all about. And then off camera you can't see it, and I apologize for that. Below my encouraging pile is one that is just kind of random. It doesn't have a strict theme, so to speak, but there was a rainbow card that I really loved that had these gorgeous kind of saturated fall colors, kind of warm, I guess I can't say saturated and muted at the same time, but that's kind of what it feels like to me. I don't know how else to describe it. You'll see it later on. I'm going to walk you through each of these kits once I have them all completed, so you can see everything that I've decided to include. And this is a long part of the video, yes, and this is probably maybe a little bit boring to watch, but I wanted you to really get a feel for what I included and what I left. So I wanted you to see my entire decision-making process here. That's why I've left all of this in the video. Feel free to skip ahead if this is just way too much for you. I totally understand. But yeah, I wanted for those who want to be able to see the entire process to leave all of this in. So this whole process took me just over an hour, not counting the time it took to go through my photos. And I didn't print the photos at that time. I just looked through my photo library to see what I had. So it didn't really take that much time to do that, but it was just over an hour, which isn't that bad to end up with 6 kits. I don't think that that's a terrible amount of time to spend. And it helps that I have all of my supplies organized now. I didn't have to go all over the place to find the things I needed. They were all kind of, in their individual places, easy to go through, easy to grab. So that helped a lot. But yeah, it was just a morning when I had an hour to kill and spent the time doing this. So not bad, I don't think. So the pile I'm going through now is all Studio Calico. I used to subscribe to Studio Calico several years back, and then a few years ago I did purchase a bunch of kits when they had them on sale, like their past kit sale. So I have some of those as well, and then I also tend to buy the digitals now. More recently, I buy just the digital cards because that's really what I use from Studio Calico. I'm not a big fan of their kits. They tended to be kind of difficult for me to use, the embellishments and everything. So I prefer just to get the cards now, but I do have this large stash from the many years I subscribed to them before. So that's what I'm going through now. There's still a lot of really usable cards here. It just takes time to work through them. And when you have a constant new supply of cards coming in, it's hard to work through the stash that you have, which is why I'm so happy to have these stash kits and to be able to use up some of the things that I purchased and paid for and have in my stash because I want to use them. I mean, I recently did that huge de-stash, and this is the stuff that I kept, so I really want to get it used. Okay, so I went through that Studio Calico pile, which is probably the second biggest pile of cards I have after Citrus Twist, and I think I'm done now. I think I thought about going back to look through a couple other categories, but I have so much out on my desk right now. I decided just to stick with this. I'm just kind of looking through each pile, rearranging them a little bit to make sure that they have kind of a more even distribution, and then I'm going to come back here and talk to you about how I'm going to put together the rest of these kits.
Okay, so I actually ended up with 6 piles of 3x4 cards. I think I'm just going to go with it. I have quite a few weeks to catch up on, and I'm really liking these groupings so far. I did pull out this one because my dog's 15th birthday did happen in the time period that I'm going to be documenting. I'm not sure which week I'm going to be using it for, and it doesn't really like match any particular one. So I just set it aside so that I can remember to use it on that spread with whatever kit it happens to go with. So I'm just setting that one off to the side. Next, I'm going to grab my 4x6 cards and try and find some that will work with these kits.
Okay, so I have my 4x6 cards stored in this plastic container from scrapbook.com. They're organized by manufacturer, just like my 3x4 cards are. So once again, I'm going to start with the Citrus Twist Kit ones, just because I know that there's going to be ones in here that will match the cards that I've already added to my kits. So that seemed like a good place to start. When I create Project Life pages, I maybe use 1 or 2 4x6 cards per spread. So I know I don't need a lot of these. I need between 2 and 4 probably for each kit, and not really any more than that, or I just won't use them. So I'm not feeling like I need to have a ton here. I just need to get a couple for each one. And I do have fewer 4x6 cards in general because there are generally fewer 4x6 cards in the kits that you get. So it doesn't take me quite as long to go through these. I do have some just regular papers that are cut down to 4x6 in these piles as well. So some of the Citrus Twist Kit papers that I've cut down to 4x6 are in this section. I decided just to keep them there because that would be how I would use them most likely. And the same with Studio Calico, which I'll be going through next. I often purchase the 4x6 paper pads that came with the kits or that coordinated with their kits. So I have quite a few of those as well. So you'll see those, which really the only difference is that they're not double-sided. So when I flip them over, they're white. That's how you know that it is either a printable or a paper. So I'm tending to make sure I have some neutral ones for each kit because I know I'll be adding photos and journaling and other things on top of them, so I don't want them to be too busy. Generally, I have a hard time using 4x6 cards that are filler cards that have just a large sentiment on them because I rarely have that kind of space in my album. I'm going through the Hip Kit Club cards that I have now, and I didn't go through the 3x4 cards. I don't believe I did, but I thought there might be a good title card in there. I knew that there were some that had like months and weeks. I didn't end up finding any of them that would work for the kits that I have, but I do have a decent stash of Hip Kit Club cards from the time I was on their design team as well. These are the Studio Calico cards now, so I'm just looking through them. You can see they're quite old. Some of them are very old. I've had these for a very long time, so it feels really good to start to use some of them up. I just have a hard time remembering to go back to my stash to use them because I have this constant influx of new kits. So hopefully in 2021, I will be able to use these more now that I don't have Citrus Twist kits coming in. Although I was considering finding another kit club, but I think I'm just going to write it out and see how it goes and not subscribe to anything new. And then if I need to purchase or find a kit, kind of a one-off kit that really speaks to me, maybe I'll go ahead and purchase one at a time instead of subscribing. But I have so much in my stash that I really need to use up. So maybe I will just continue to do these stash kits. Okay, so I think I have a couple at least for each kit. I'm just going to finish up going through these Studio Calico cards and make sure that I have enough for each of these 6 kits that I'm putting together here. And then I'm going to come back live and talk to you about how I'm going to start adding embellishments to each of these kits. I do want to make sure I have plenty of things that I can use to kind of finish up these spreads in the kit so I don't have to constantly be going back to my stash. So I'm going to talk to you about my plan for doing that next.
Okay, so I have my 6 kits, a little bit more organized than they were. What I've done is just stack them up with the cards that felt most emblematic of kind of the color scheme that was in each kit on top, so that as I go through the embellishments to start to add things to these kits, this will give me an idea of kind of the color palette for each one without having to have all the cards for all the kits all spread out. So that was what I was going for here. I have my big bin of embellishments here off to the side. I'm just going to start going through some of them and pulling out a few for each kit. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. I'm going to be kind of strategic about what I pull out, knowing what the content of each kit is and what is going to work best with those cards. So I'm going to go ahead and put you back on fast forward and start adding some embellishments.
So it is about to get super messy on my desk, so just bear with me here as I go through all of these bits and pieces and try and add embellishments to these kits. But I'm going to start with some ColorCast designs because I know that there are some in here that I really want to use with these kits. So that's where I'm going to start. I have all of them in another one of those blue coffee cup boxes from Starbucks, and I'm just going through everything here and making sure that I pull out all the ones that might work with what I have here. I'm mostly going to add wood veneer just because I really love using the ColorCast Designs wood veneer in my Project Life pages. They're super thin so they don't bulk up my album or distort the plastic page protectors, and they're self-adhesive, which makes them super easy to use. You don't have to worry about adding liquid glue and waiting for it to dry. So I know I want to use some of those. So I grabbed 3 different packages of them and added them to 3 of the different kits. And then I started going through my chipboard. So I have these, a lot of these 4x6 chipboard packages, I don't know, packages of chipboard, sheets of chipboard from both Studio Calico and Citrus Twist. And I really like using these in my Project Life, even though they are a bit thicker and do sometimes add a bit more bulk. You can peel off some of the back if you don't like that and then just glue them down. But generally, it doesn't bother me too much to have just that extra little bit. It's not enough to really make the page protectors distort or anything. So I really like using them. I wanted to make sure I added a few of those to some of the kits. And then I also have this very large pile of phrase and word stickers, like kind of word strips or tiny word stickers. I don't know what you call them. There's a lot of different words for them, but I have a bunch of them and I like to use these as well, especially because they can kind of serve in the place of journaling sometimes when you're just not sure what to say or don't have a lot of room to add something. You can just kind of add a little sticker that will kind of sum up a pretty basic photo. So I added some of those to, I think all of the kits got one. And then I'm going through the puffy stickers. Again, I have quite a few of these from Feed Your Craft and from Citrus Twist kits. And I'm just adding ones really just looking at the colors. There's even one from Studio Calico there, looking at the colors that are in the kits and adding them by theme or color. That's really all I'm doing here. Just looking at colors and themes and adding whatever will work. So pretty simple, pretty straightforward, not too complicated. I did have that old Journal Studio one even that I'm going to add to that kit. I'm happy to get that one out and hopefully get some of it used. And then I think I just look through some of the rest of kind of the more random embellishments. I have some cork embellishments and some just regular stickers. Just trying to make sure that I have enough in each kit to really get started. And if I need to go back and add more later, I can do that. So I think I've got enough for each one. I'm going to come back again and talk to you about how I'm going to finish up this process.
Okay, so I feel pretty good about these 6 kits so far, but I do want to add at least one stamp set to each one. So I have my stamps. My stamps are stored like this. by category, some of them, and then I have one that's just kind of random things that didn't really have a category. I know that some of these are very kind of like, this is kind of a travel theme. This is lots of books and coffee. There's lots of fall things in this one. So that's going to make those pretty easy. For the rest of them, I'm just going to kind of go through the random ones and see what I can find.
My goal for adding stamps to these kits is to use the stamps, basically. I know that if I don't add them to the kits, that the odds of me going to my stash and pulling out stamps to use in these pages they're really low. So if I add the stamps to the kits as I'm making them, then I'm going to be much more likely to actually add stamping. I love adding stamping to my Project Life pages, but I often forget to do it. I often just forget that I have stamps that will work, or forget to make space for the stamping when I'm creating. So if I at least have the stamps in the kits and they're sitting right there when I'm making them, hopefully I will remember to actually get them used. So my plan is to add one or two, or two or three maybe. I think I add at least 2 stamp sets to each kit. I generally try to go for one larger 4x6 stamp set and one smaller. I have a lot of the smaller stamp sets from Studio Calico and Citrus Twist kits, so I'm trying to make use of all of those. So adding one larger stamp set and one smaller stamp set. I think I do add maybe 2 larger stamp sets to a couple of the kits that I just really had some great stamps that I wanted to use with these other products that I've pulled out here. So I did the first 3. Those are the ones that are kind of more themey, so to speak, and those were easy because I had those stamps divided into those categories already. And now I'm working on the other 3 that aren't really themed, but just kind of need some kind of random everyday sort of stamps to go with it. So that first one, I grabbed one from Feed Your Craft. I also grabbed another one from Feed Your Craft for the one there in the bottom right, and another Feed Your Craft one for the top one. So that one is Brandy Kincaid. The one there at the bottom is Beshka, and the other one, I don't remember. Oh, it was just a Feed Your Craft one. It was one of my favorite Feed Your Craft ones. She released a set called, oh, I don't remember, and I don't think it's available anymore. If it is, I'll link it down below. But there were 2. One was kind of like a nailed it one, and one was like a oof, like a bad day one. So I love those 2 stamp sets. I added one to the kit because I just love using them. And then I'm looking through some of the smaller ones just to find ones that will work with those stamps and just help me tell these stories in ways that will also help me use my supplies. So I think I'm just about finished with the stamps. I'm going to come back here one more time live and walk you through what I've done.
Okay, so I have my 6 kits. That's about twice what I had planned on making, but I'm happy with this, and I think that I'll be able to use this to get completely caught up in my Project Life album. So I have these bags from Studio Calico kits from a long time ago. I save all of them because they are really useful for this sort of thing. So I am just going to walk you through each one and bag them up, and then that'll be it.
As I walk through each of these kits to give you kind of an overview of what each one looks like, I did want to make note of a couple things that I did not include in any of these kits. The first is die cuts. So there are no die cuts in any of these kits, and that was basically just because I knew that was going to take me a long time to go through my die cuts and find ones, and I wanted to see if I could do these spreads without them. I don't know if that's really going to happen or not, because I generally tend to use a lot of labels and die cuts in my spreads. So that may have been a bad decision, but we will see as we start to use these kits if that's going to work out for me or not. If I need to go to my die cut stash and pull out some for each of these kits as I'm working on them, I can definitely do that. That's one of the great things about doing these DIY kits, is that you have the freedom to add or subtract from these kits as you choose to. They're yours. You can do with them what you want. So if I need to add die cuts, I will. The other thing I did not include in any of these kits is alphas. So now that my alpha storage has been purged and reorganized, I feel pretty confident in my ability to just grab an alpha when I need it. And I do use those alphas for other projects quite frequently. So I didn't want to have my alphas tied up in these kits and not be available to me for other things. So I decided not to include them in the kits. And when I'm working on one of these spreads, I'll just pull over that little basket I have of alphas and just choose one on the fly. And I think that that will work out just fine. I'm not too worried. That's not going to take me a long time. I don't have a lot of alpha stash anymore now that I've purged a bunch of them. So it shouldn't take me a super long time to find one that will work, and then that will leave them outside of the kits and available to me to use in other projects in the meantime. So that's why I didn't include those. I think pretty much everything else is covered here. I think I've got some pretty good stash kits. I'm excited to use them. I can't wait to catch up on my project life. And I use that term loosely, but I can't wait to start working on my project life and get some of these kits used in the process. So I hope that you enjoyed this process. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments below, and I will definitely get back to you as soon as I can. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope that you are inspired to create some stash kits of your own, and if you do, I would love it if you would tag me so that I can see what you make. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you all back here very soon.